Ever look in the mirror and think your eye color is just, well, a color, a random trait you inherited? Turns out it's so much more than that. The color in your iris isn't just for show. It's actually a piece of high-performance survival gear, fine-tuned over thousands of years of human migration.
I love this way of thinking about it. Your eye color is basically an evolutionary receipt. It's a biological paper trail that tells the incredible story of how your ancestors managed to survive, the climates they battled, the dangers they faced, and the amazing tools they evolved to overcome it all.
So that brings us to the big question. What story do your eyes tell? In this explainer, we are going to decode the physics, the genetics, and all the hidden health advantages built right into your iris. And by the end, you'll see your own eyes in a whole new light. Okay, let's kick things off with the most common eye color, which, it turns out, is also the original. A lot of people might think of brown eyes as just, standard, but biologically, they are a powerful shield, forged for the absolute toughest environments on the planet.
And just look at these numbers. They completely dominate. We're talking over 70% of the global population. Now, that is not an accident. It's proof of an incredibly successful evolutionary design that was literally the blueprint for all of humanity for most of our history.
So what's the secret sauce? Well, it all boils down to a pigment called melanin. And you have to understand, this isn't just about color. It's a high-grade, built-in sunscreen that physically soaks up to 90% of light, and that includes dangerous UV radiation. For our early ancestors living under the intense sun, this was a life-or-death feature, no question.
And it gets even cooler when you look at the specific shade. If you have those really deep obsidian brown eyes, that high melanin content might actually be linked to how fast your brain sends signals. The theory is it was an adaptation for spotting threats faster in super bright, high glare places, which might explain why it gives a statistical edge in reactive sports like boxing. But if your eyes are more of a lighter, espresso brown, some studies suggest you could have a higher sensitivity to alcohol. Your body basically sends the time to stop signals sooner, which could lower the risk of dependency.
Now let's jump to the complete opposite end of the spectrum, to the mutants. And I mean that in the most scientific and frankly, coolest way possible. Blue eyes are a really fascinating and pretty recent genetic glitch, a total departure from that original human blueprint. So here's the origin story. Before about 10,000 years ago, every single human being on Earth had brown eyes, period. Then, somewhere in Northern Europe, one single person had a random mutation in a gene called Hercules 2. It basically acted like a light switch, completely turning off melanin production in the iris, and that means every single blue-eyed person on the planet today is a descendant of that one single human. But here it is. This might be the most mind-blowing fact of this whole thing. If you have blue eyes, there's absolutely zero blue pigment in them. None. What you're seeing isn't actually a color. It's an illusion. The illusion is all thanks to physics, a principle called Rayleigh scattering. And get this, it's the exact same reason the sky looks blue. See, because there's no dark melanin pigment to absorb the light. Short blue light waves come into the eye, hit the tiny collagen fibers in your iris, and just scatter back out. Your brain just interprets all that scattered light as the color blue. Wild, right? Okay, so now we get into the really rare and complex stuff, what you could call the genetic cocktails. These are the eye colors that are chemically dynamic, mixing and balancing all these different biological ingredients to create something totally unique.
First up, green eyes. And just look at that number. A mere 2% of the world's population has them. Seriously, if you have green eyes, you are a walking, talking, chemical anomaly.
Yeah, creating green eyes requires this incredibly precise genetic cocktail of at least 16 genes all working together just right. It's a microscopic sweet spot. You need a little bit of brown melanin, but not too much, plus a light dusting of a yellow pigment called lipochrome. So when that scattered blue light we talked about mixes with that yellow filter, our brain sees green. And this combination is so delicate it's actually considered chemically unstable, which is why green eyes seem to shift color in different lighting.
And that brings us to the ultimate biological chameleons, hazel eyes. This isn't just a trick of a light, they physically change how they look. See, hazel eyes often have a brown ring right around the pupil and a greener ring on the outside. So when your pupil shrinks in bright light, you see more of that outer green ring. But in dim light, your pupil gets bigger, which kind of squishes that outer ring and makes the inner brown part look dominant. You literally have a dynamic iris curtain that's constantly adapting to the world around you.
All right, let's wrap up our tour with the true outliers on the spectrum, the absolute rarest eye colors that represent some really extreme evolutionary adaptations.
Gray eyes are, believe it or not, even more of an illusion than blue ones. With even less melanin, those collagen fibers scatter light even more, kind of like a cloudy sky. The effect is basically a biological satellite dish, an eye that's perfectly built to capture every last photon of light in those really overcast northern European climates. Then you've got amber eyes. These have almost no brown melanin, but they are completely saturated with that yellow lipichrome pigment. This creates that stunning, solid gold color that's often called the wolf eye, super common in predators but incredibly rare in humans.
So, after all that, why does any of this matter? Well, because understanding your eye color isn't just a fun history lesson. You should think of it as your biological dashboard, giving you some really critical info about your body's strengths and weaknesses right now, today.
Let's break it down. If you have dark eyes, your evolutionary superpower is that built-in, high-performance shield against UV light and glare. It's a tool for keeping your vision sharp in bright conditions. The modern-day heads-up is just to be mindful of internal factors, as some research suggests potential links to how the body handles things like pain and inflammation. Now, if you have light eyes, your superpower is a hypersensitive receptor, basically designed to pull light out of the darkness, giving you better vision in low light. But the big warning is that you are biologically vulnerable to the modern-day assault of UV and blue light from screens. This means a good pair of sunglasses isn't a fashion accessory, it's absolutely non-negotiable.
And that brings us to the final thought. The real takeaway here is to stop fighting your biology and start working with it. So the question to leave you with is this. Now that you know the story your eyes tell, how are you going to protect the specific genetic machinery that your ancestors worked so damn hard to pass down to you?